10. So we're gonna try to keep this to hopefully about an hour. We have another presenter coming at 10 o'clock. I appreciate everybody being here. I know there's a lot of things going on, and I know you all are busy, but I appreciate you all taking the time to come in. So with us today, I think everybody knows Penny Peebler here, and I believe everybody has met Gil Johnson. He has done some stuff with us before. So Gil, I'm just gonna kind of let you take it and run with it. That's okay.
Happy Monday morning.
After I just woke up, too, Judge, thanks a lot. The judge asked me to be here today, and Penny and I have been working together on this proposed project, which is the establishment, creation of an industrial authority that would have some activity with respect to an economic development project that would actually be located physically within Franklin County, Kentucky, but would be a part of a program involving not only Franklin County, but the city of Frankfort, the city of Lawrenceburg, Kentucky, and Anderson County. And the whole project, which Penny could probably describe far better than I can, is intended to bring the four, I'll call them parties or governmental entities together, and that those entities then would invest cash into a industrial development authority, and that cash would ultimately be matched by Kentucky, Kentucky?
Cabinet for Economic Development.
Yeah, no, but it's called the
Oh,
Kentucky,
KEDFA.
KPDI program, which allows or encourages governmental entities to come together to form industrial authorities or other entities for economic development purposes. And I presume it's also probably somewhat in conjunction with what the governor has recently announced about Kentucky Home Initiative and things of that nature. So it's a real boost in Kentucky, but it's a real boost for counties and cities that are joining together to secure an additional up to $4 million from the state of Kentucky. Now, the issue right now is that we're on somewhat of a timeline, if I understand correctly, Penny.
Yeah.
And that time constraint is that in order for us to participate, we have to acknowledge to the state that we're willing to move forward with the project. And that would be in the form of adopting some sort of resolution that would approve an interlocal agreement, which is with respect to the formation of the Industrial Development Authority, and then at a subsequent date, approve whatever appropriations would be appropriate for the initial contribution. So I divided it up into two segments. Now that's the executive summary. The more detailed summary is twofold. First, when I was asked by the judge to engage on behalf of Franklin County in the drafting of an interlocal agreement, which you have here in front of you, and hopefully, just to make sure we're on the right page, the top right-hand header should read 11/15/2024 draft. So that means I've got the right one. And when I say I've got the right one, Anderson County and Anderson Ford, their economic development group down there, engaged the McBrayer law firm who did the initial draft. It was somewhat of a bare bones draft, and the judge asked me to take a look at it, as did Penny. What would I add? What would I take out, et cetera? And that's exactly what I did. I was not. Got to repeat now? Okay. And that's what I did. I thought there were some holes in the original one that were normal, not anything that was a problem. But this is what I envisioned. I envisioned an interlocal cooperative agreement that would form an industrial development authority under KRS 154.50. I make a reference there in part of the recitals. And that industrial authority then would be made up of board members. We call them board members. They're actually just called members in the statute. And there would be 7. And the appointment process would be through the counties. Each of the counties gets a pick, and there's 2, and then there's a pick coming from the city. And then at that stage of the game, the 7th individual would be selected by consensus of the other 6 members. What does the authority do? Well, the authority has some pretty big statutory obligations and responsibilities. But the best way to put it is, it's responsible for economic development in its given jurisdiction. And the given jurisdiction in this case is what we call the initial project. It's a site, I don't know what,
It's at the county line.
if that's county line, and if I think what, Keaton Lane, is that, okay. So it's all within the county, and there's nothing there now, correct?
Correct. Well,
So-
there's farms there now. Farms.
Oh, farmland, but it's undeveloped in terms of economic
That's
development.
correct.
So you're not generating anything in that area right now, but the idea is that you would now have, for lack of a better word, an industrial park with which to go market and economic development, build and grow. But it takes money to buy the property. It takes money to bring infrastructure to it. And so that purpose, the purpose of the KPDI program is to match dollars that you would put into it. So the initial agreement was each of the respective area public properties or public entities would put in $1 million each. And then the state of Kentucky would match that $1 million. So you'd have $8 million with which to proceed to buy, develop the land. Now, that doesn't mean we get the complete piece of property fully and completely developed, but it does put you in a position now that you can go out and you can start attracting economic development opportunities to that particular area. And then as these folks come in or look at your property, they'll make additional demands of you for things to the property, that's been my experience, at least with Warren County and Barron and some other places. So they'd come in, make certain demands, but there would be a cost associated with that to the particular entity or company. So that was all part of the negotiations. Our time constraints really is what's kind of driving this rather rapidly, from my perspective, because I just got involved in it. It's the fact that we've got to present something to KITPA by the end of the month, or certainly by Thanksgiving,
By
within
Thanksgiving.
by that time frame, that we're willing to go for. And what is it that we have to present them? Well, it's an interlocal agreement. And that's the 11/15/2024 draft. The highlights of this are that each of the participants will put in an equal amount of cash. That's $1 million. May I digress a little bit on that
And I'll
1
add
million?
something too.
Huh?
And I'll add something when you finish.
Okay,
too.
but that's only going to cost the county $500,000. That's what I wanted to say. Because your capital development group is going to put in $1 million.
Right.
So that's only $500,000 to you. The interlocal agreement, first of all, forms the Industrial Development Authority. You go proceed with the appointment of the members. The members then are responsible for the operations. Do you lose control over this? And the answer is no, you don't. Although the statute gives a lot of autonomy to the members, your control remains with the appropriation process. So without money, they can't proceed, and the entities have to, the public entities have to appropriate. That's one thing that we were very diligent about, to make sure that there was a continued control through the appropriation process going forward, both now and in the future. The second is the revenue share. As the property is developed, the idea is that there will be an annual budget prepared, and if there are shortfalls, and we'll have to address that, but each of the counties and cities get to make that decision as to whether or not they want to continue. Now, this has been a big question. What happens if we all put up our $1 million, we got $4 million in, the state comes in with its $4 million, we got $8 million, and we're developing and we're moving along, but we have shortfalls. What do we do to make up for those shortfalls? Well, the authority would come to each of the governmental entities, and it would ask for an appropriation of funds. If a particular county or city at that time decided, no, I don't want to do that, then their percentage share in the revenue share would reduce proportionately. So that was one factor that we put in here. We call it capital accounts. So each county and city maintains a capital account. That initial capital account will be $1 million. Everybody gets 25%. But if you don't make up a shortfall, your percentage of the participation of revenues decreases. And so it's diluted. The second question is can any one particular county withdraw or city? And the answer to the question is, yeah, you could, but why would you? Oh, you're still going to get a revenue share whether you continue participating or not. So it doesn't make any sense. But yes, you could. I think, let's see, I've talked about the capital account participation share. Yeah, go ahead, Sherry.
Question. Thank you.
Yeah, you're fine, sorry.
You indicated just now that if an entity, a governmental entity withdrew, they would continue to get a revenue share. So if
Well-
they had withdrew from this partnership. they
Well,
would I'm sorry,
no, go ahead, Sherry.
that's what I heard you say. I may not.
Yeah, that's
have
exactly
heard,
what I
because I'm
said.
Probably jet lagging.
But think about it. First of all, you've got an authority and you've got 4 shareholders in it.
Right,
Each of them got 25% interest because each of them put in $1 million. You're only putting in $500,000, but you're $1 million,
Theory.
that counts, okay.
Yeah.
So you got a 25% shareholder interest in that particular company. And now the authority wants additional funds. But you decide you don't want to give them that additional funds. Your 25% reduces down, okay?
That's what I
It doesn't allow you, I mean, it doesn't force you to withdraw. But if you did that, your percentage would be different. So why would you, if you didn't want to put up money, which is fine, and I mean the second round of money, not the first. If you didn't want to put up money, you wouldn't want to get out and lose your money. Does that make sense?
it does,
Okay.
but my question was, is if you withdrew 100% from the partnership.
Mhm.
I don't know what. you
Well, I don't know why you would, but if you did, go ahead.
But let's say you did, let's say that there was some circumstance that came up in your community and you chose to withdraw from this
Mhm.
completely.
Mhm.
So there are 3 remaining
There'd be
legs
3
on the
remaining.
stool. And you still get a share?
Well, if
That's
you,
what I understood you,
yeah,
and I may be wrong, I may have
Depends on
misunderstood.
what the,
it depends on what you want to do. You would still get a share because you're entitled to get your money back on the initial $1 million that you've invested.
Yeah, I understand
Okay,
that.
but you're no longer participating. So you're out, you would lose it. You'd lose whatever participation you'd had. So why would you do that? I don't want to participate anymore. I'm out, okay? And then we don't come back to you, but you still got the authority. I still put my $1 million in there. It's now, I got a percentage of 10%, 11%, 12%, whatever it may be. But you get a reduced because you did put up that $1 million.
They're not getting a refund on $1 million.
Yes, they're not
Oh, no,
no.
oh, that's the question.
That
I'm-
was not the question.
Oh,
It was
okay.
not a question.
Oh.
So my question was, I mean, if I've got 4 things on the table, and I completely take this one away, why would this entity get a continuing share 20, 30
You're gonna
years
give it,
out?
you're gonna give that
Because they get
entity its $1 million back?
But only on the million, so how is that calculated?
How's
Because
that?
there has to be some kind of
percentage will drop.
statistical model
That's
or
right.
some kind of modeling.
Percentage will drop.
Look
based on
at,
percentage.
And I apologize, I mean,
It's all right.
I literally got in at like.
look at the very last page, 16. There's your initial percentages, which are 25% each. Okay? Each put up $1 million.
Yep.
All right? Bear with me while I find it, okay? I can't remember how she did this, but in any event, the share participation reduces.
Yeah, it
By what it-
reduces by whatever the second capital call is, right? So if let's say, there's a $14 million grant applied for. And the grant comes in to further build out whatever the infrastructure is that's necessary. Okay? And for some reason, the grant doesn't come through. And there's $14 million that's there in need. Then the partners and the company that's been recruited have to find out what that looks like. And so if the partners are asked to put additional money in, then whatever they put in becomes the total distributed into the new company. And so if this person over here that only put in the $1 million, they don't have as much of a share in the company anymore, so they're not gonna get a return proportionate to the amount that was put in. Now, one thing that I wanted to say at the outset of
Okay.
this is, and I want to make sure that I understand this correctly while you are in the room. We will allocate the cash after this interlocal agreement, and it will be there, but we will not be spending the cash until we know that we have a prospect that we are working to bring here. This is not a spec build.
No,
This is an opportunity to go out and find the fit that is going to be the right fit for Franklin County environmentally. It's going to be the right fit economically. It's going to be the right fit geographically, all of those things. And we have a lot of stakeholders to bring along in that, right? But this is what gives us that opportunity. So my understanding is we may have to allocate that cash and place it in an account on hold, right? Cannot spend this because it's earmarked. But we're not physically going to spend it until we have somebody and we are making that deal.
well, yeah, that's your own, yeah.
That's my.
Well, that's one of the guardrails of
But-
the
yeah,
But
resolution.
let me finish Sherry's.
Can I respond to Sherry's question if I could?
Please, Mac, go ahead.
Page 11,
Okay,
section 7.08.
again, I literally have
Page
not
11,
said
section
this at all.
7.08. Last sentence of that paragraph. No withdrawing party shall be entitled to the return of any money or property advanced to the authority according to KRS 154.5.
But they get a potential return on the initial investment. And that would be ad infinitum, no matter if they withdrew 100 years ago.
Well, if you
Yep,
go,
or no?
well, if you go to the top of it, it talks about other things that the parties can do as far as terminating the agreement, choosing another partner to go in with. So there are other alternatives.
Okay. I
But their
clearly have got
percentage,
to read it.
Mac, their percentage participation in Sherry's example is reduced. So if you take what Penny just said, and now you've got $14 million added on, they have 1 million divided by 14 plus, what would be 18 million. So,
8% or something.
yeah, so their
Our
percentage
percentages will go
participation
up.
in the revenue share is reduced.
We're gonna get 90% or 98%, they're gonna get 2%.
Yeah.
Can I ask a
I
question?
apologize for
No,
asking.
you're
I'm
not-
just
you-
trying to
good question.
make sure I understood this.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah,
That
go
money
ahead.
that's set aside in that account, can that be invested while we're waiting?
Yes.
It can draw interest in.
Yeah.
That's our understanding.
Absolutely, yeah.
And.
Yeah, it's not a bond
Eric
issue, so you don't have an
Rose,
arbitrage
the
issue.
company.
Writing.
Yeah.
We can do that.
Yeah.
But let me emphasize something that Penny,
No, yeah, I just wanna make sure it's,
let me emphasize something that I think Penny just said. You know, what's gonna happen is you're gonna have $8 million sitting in a kitty. And I say 8 million because I'm assuming that you'll get the grant. And you got that money sitting there. Now the board's got a responsibility to try to spend it. Okay, so one of the things you're gonna need is additional water and sewer and that sort of thing. They're not gonna make that decision. I don't know. I can't speak for people who I don't know is gonna be on the board, but they probably not gonna spend that money. Or at least incur an obligation until, as Penny says, we know we got something, we got a target. And what's gonna happen, in my experience, has been that when you go out after these targets, they're gonna come to you and say, let me tell you what I want, okay? Now, I don't want that sewer to come here, I want it to come down to there, so you don't, or whatever it may be. Electric utilities, gas, whatever it may be. So, that's a responsible authority doing, and I keep calling it authority, and board may be a better word, but that's what its responsibility is. And that budget process has to come through you. So they get to approve their own budget, but they are required to identify to you what that budget is and how they're spending that money and how that's coming back, what their anticipations are. They have an obligation to come forward to you, at least statutorily, on a somewhat regular basis to report, okay, here's who we've contacted, here's what we've got going. And that's what the board will do, and whoever they engage to do that sort of thing. And they have the statutory authority to receive money from all kinds of sources, not just the PDI program, but also, any government, any other government grants, et cetera.
Right, CDBG grants or anything.
federal,
else that
state,
they-
otherwise.
Right,
It has its own independent authority to bond. It can be a little difficult because you gotta figure out who's gonna buy the bonds, but they have their own independent authority to do that. So if they said, well, look, we need $4 million to put in a sewer line. Okay, how are you gonna get that money? Well, we might issue revenue bonds that are tied to the revenues that are generated through that sewer system and the sewer revenues. But why would they do that unless they know they've got a revenue source? Because you've got to have somebody to buy the bonds that knows that source is coming in, so. I don't know if I got off track or not, but
Can we walk down a little bit of this? You
Yeah.
know, I'm generally, let's just say, not supportive because I've seen so many pitfalls. Not to mention our community doesn't want this there, but we'll talk about that in a little while. I'm concerned about the development process. We all know the long-term pattern of these developments throughout the state of Kentucky, where these entities are created, and then 5 years down the road, when all the players have moved on that were originally part of the entity, things morph and intent creeps.
mhm,
And I see a pitfall where Franklin County may be completely overruled by the remaining members of the board, or the Anderson County members of the board, plus whoever the seventh appointee is, that says, okay, well, we really need to develop out the infrastructure for this thing and sort of make this an industrial park and go ahead and build the infrastructure, the road systems, the sewers, and we want to make it an office complex or whatever else it may be. And they start down the road of spending and asking for capital without any promise of return. What are our guarantees to be able to navigate that is never an option? We all know the Midway one that sat there for 25 years undeveloped and is just now starting to begin a rate of return, right? I never want to see that happen. And as well, I mean, we have indefinite options. I kind of want to see at a minimum, if this moves forward, a sunset clause. If there's
Mhm.
10 years down the road, this has not moved forward in any way by general authority granted in the creation of the entity, it is absolutely dissolved.
I think there's a sunset clause in the KPDI that you only have a certain amount of time to do it. Is that right, Brent?
One thing I'd stress, if I may, in dealing with these types of projects across the state, what we're encouraging most people to do is to not build out the roads, to get everything to the edge of the property, because based on the scale and magnitude of the
Yeah.
project that's coming, you don't want to build something you're just gonna have to tear out. As an economic developer, I would tell you that Midway Park was a mistake. They got the cart way before the horse, and it's actually been problematic for them to get certain fits based on the way the lots were broken out. The way that I typically will recommend to communities to progress is have a blank canvas, have everything ready on the edge of it. And Gil will tell you, the way that the Bowling Green Trans Park developed was totally different than what they originally thought it was. It's kept expanding and it's kept had opportunities based on the fact that they were not jumping in so far that they couldn't see that development plan. I will also tell you that the way that we look at industrial parks, as soon as you get a quality site up, opportunities start coming. And we are in a very unique position in this country right now that manufacturing is returning to the United States. I travel quite a bit, and I can tell you that most of the European manufacturers are going to be heading this way. If we're ready, we will benefit. If we're not, there will be other places that will. And I think it's that simple to understand what's on the table right now, being ready or wishing. And I think that's where we're kind of at in this community.
Jerry.
Thank you, Jay. Penny, did you say that there is a sunset clause in the PDI process? I'm just trying to
I
cut to
think that
that.
there is,
I'm pretty sure there is.
but
too. don't
I
remember what it is.
need to look it up
Okay.
and verify that. Okay,
Okay.
let me do that, but I
Okay.
believe there
Thank
is a sunset clause. So I will get you that answer
Thank you.
today.
But within the creation of it, I mean, I would be adamant that we have something
No, I
that,
understand.
that we can't have an indefinite option on properties that will never.
No, I think
Some of them
half
are
the
already
money
in
is gonna
flux.
disappear if it's not used within.
I don't know, but the window
I know.
for it anyway,
Yeah.
based on, Team Kentucky, recruitment efforts, interest of our federal elected officials in bringing,
Mhm.
Opportunity.
Yeah, thank you.
Opportunity.
I might have missed the boat. I'm gonna be devil's advocate on everything. I want to see answers to the pitfalls. What general benefit, I have to bring this one up, I mean, the only benefit to my mind of working with another county, and I said this before, I don't believe the other county and city have the same priorities as us, in terms of land usage, and land policy, planning and zoning. So the benefit of a joint merger is just financial for an additional 50% state match, right?
Well,
But the entirety of this property is in Franklin County. Why not forego it alone? I have to
Well,
ask the question because this is
no,
the
I
first time
understand.
that
I
any of this has
understand.
been brought to
yeah,
this
of
court,
course,
right?
and I can answer that question based on the information that I have today, which is Team Kentucky has a regional approach to economic development. We have a statewide economic development plan, which I provided to everybody here. We have a regional plan, and Team Kentucky takes a regional approach. So these regional projects are incentivized by the government because that is the approach. It's a best practice nationally. It's the approach that the state of Kentucky plan adopted. It's a similar plan to what happened in the Research Triangle in Charlotte. It's what happened in Warren County. So it is the best practice of today's economic development practices. Your answer is correct. There are several different, I mean, obviously the land's in Franklin County. It's not going to move from Franklin County. It's here. There are various benefits to Franklin County for developing it here. There are benefits to the region, but the workforce is regional. There's 7 counties that work here now. There are 13 counties that work at the Toyota plant in Georgetown. So that is the best practice about regionality. Now, in addition to that, there is induced spending. That is the next piece of the economic model that we need. We need an economist to give us the exact percentages of induced spending based on the number of jobs. That figure is 43 cents for every dollar earned is in general spent within the county in which it's earned. That's just a national statistic. So there are a lot of benefits to regional thinking because the companies who are looking to locate don't see county lines. They see we're going to this area of the country, particularly if you look at Europe. They may understand that Kentucky's in the middle of the country. They may not. The other reason is that the land in this particular area at the county line is also future land use comp plan planned in Anderson County as future industrial. So with the sewers coming from Anderson County to this site, and future industrial already planned there on the other side of the county line, that is the potential growth of this area, should growth be necessary. We don't know who we're going to attract. We know who's looking. We know how much land is needed. The cabinet gives us a number to work toward, to have tied up together. They call that the product. This is called the Kentucky Product Development Initiative. And the land with all of its infrastructure is the product. Without that product, there are no jobs landed. So that's the long answer about the regional approach. It's not something Anderson County came up with or KCDC came up with. It's what the cabinet came up with.
And Eric, let me say this too, on another scale, kind of like regionalization. We've talked about Anderson a little bit with our jail. I'm also having conversations with Woodford and Anderson about doing our tourism together. Because between the 3 counties, we can hold border tourism here. You know, where we're getting the lodging and things like that. Woodford just had that major, $92 million castle buy with the distillery. So I think there's an opportunity for us to work together. I know Lexington's been trying to pull us in, but I don't know how much that's gonna work per se. I see working with Anderson, Woodford, as kind of our little regionalization that we might have the most success with.
Well, in terms of this, Penny, like I said, I'm gonna be the devil's advocate and try to punch holes in everything.
We're
so we
here
have
to ask
answers.
questions, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean,
It is the prerogative, what I'm getting to, it's the prerogative of this court and the city, since we already have an interlocal agreement, if we want to take this forward on our own, because right now, the property that's in question is fully in Franklin County, and this gives away 50% of our tax share
Mhm.
for an initial investment. Right, so I'm just asking, is that a possibility if this court so desires? And I'm gonna ask a lot of things because it's the first time it's come to the court, and I know we're in the 11th hour, which is
Right.
not your fault whatsoever. Your predecessor threw this whole mess into the atmosphere, and we're just now dealing with the repercussions of it. So I'm just wanting to get the answers that I think are
So
necessary
Franklin
on the
County
record.
and Gil, please weigh in. Franklin County can pursue this project on its own. It will not be eligible for the Kentucky Product Development Initiative program because that is a regional program. It will have to come up with the funds on its own. It's not incentivized.
Yeah,
But
the cost remains the
the
same,
cost remains the
that
same.
you're short at least $4 million.
But it could,
But it, yeah, of course, and
it
you
could
gotta,
go forward through your agency as it exists without creating another entity.
I certainly understand it that way. The options that are held now are jointly held with Anderson Forward, but those are held through 2025, and that provides the time to go look for interested companies.
Speak about
So-
that. We didn't create an entity that has mutual, were those options signed under the KCDC authority? and
They were
Anderson
signed
jointly
under
as
KCDC.
Partners?
Yeah, they're signed under KCDC
Okay.
they are signed under KCDC, so.
Okay.
Yes,
So-
I think,
Back to my question about that, I mean, what parameters do we have within the creation effectively of this document? That, if we create an entity and set them aside money, we control the purse strings on future funds, but not on the initial investment or whatever grant funds or CDBG or whatever else they get. And there's also a concern in my mind about a separate entity going after grant funds that we may be going for as a county
mhm.
or multiple counties going after. How do we create some parameters that those entities cannot maybe apply for dual grant funds that would conflict with us and or spend those funds on the development of the property if they wanted to, if they decided against all our wills. If they proceeded that way, I want to make sure we have some.
Well, the ability of the authority to proceed grants is statutorily granted. So there's not a lot you can do about that. I mean, the board could say, we're going after this particular grant. I don't know what grants cross lines here, but maybe a gentleman's agreement not to do that, but sort of that authority has autonomy to accomplish that. You may be able to speak to that too. I don't know if you agree or disagree with that.
Yeah, typically, on industrial parks like this, you're not gonna be targeting
Yeah.
grants in the similar vein that the court would be. So, the idea is that the grants would come as a project comes. They may be grants from transportation cabinet, there may be grants from, industrial, or from the, infrastructure authority, those types of things. So they're not typically bid on type grants that you're gonna have normal access to under the courts,
But I can see where that could be a infrastructure authority or CDBG grant where we could have conflicting
yeah.
applications the same year.
In Rockcastle County, you've seen, earmarks, I think they're called, something, there's community development grants.
There are, yes.
That are earmarked, such as what happened in Rockcastle County, there was a legislative earmark. So that was not a competitive grant, it was put into legislation.
And it was kind of project specific, wasn't it?
It was
I mean,
extremely
not,
project specific.
as you suggested it just a moment ago, but no, the authority has wide latitude to go after grants for economic development purposes, and you've got a particular project in front of you or potentially in front of you, that's when I'm going after that particular grant.
Now, 50% of the authority at this time is owned by Frankfurt and Franklin County.
Mhm.
So to Squire Wisman's question, there is a host county percentage that is retained by the host county, but is there any way to, I guess you can amend this agreement so that, let's say Franklin County owns 60% of the authority. Do people do that? So that the,
I'm not sure I follow what you're saying. I mean,
well, you're talking about the guardrails of, you're talking about the guardrails. I don't know what these other, multi-county parks are doing. Like, what's the deal down in Warren County? How much percent does Allen County have versus Warren County versus?
Well, Warren and Allen County aren't together, aren't they?
Oh,
The
sorry.
Trans Park is completely separate, you know, but, well, the city and the county are now involved in that, but
Okay.
jointly through an interlocal agreement.
I was just trying to answer Squire Wisman's question, because I can see where.
I'm trying to look out for this court's and the
Yeah.
county's best
Yeah,
interest,
I hear
and
that.
as
Well,
majority owner of.
Look at it from this perspective. If you're at the beginning point of it, I don't know if this addresses your question, but you're at the beginning point of it, and everybody's going to make an investment of $1 million. So if you make an investment of $1 million, however you get that money, then you're entitled to an equal share. It adjusts going forward if you do not participate further, and your control mechanism is through the appropriation process going forward.
What about the host county getting the seventh appointment? Would that be logical or
Getting
possible?
one, I'm sorry.
The seventh appointment that is to be made by the entity currently in this document as the host county, why would we potentially get the majority appointment?
Well, because, well, A, that's by agreement, but if you look at KRS 326, what it's at 50-326, it outlines how members are appointed. You can have no less than 6, no more than,
Nine.
not,
No
no
less
more
than
than 8,
7.
7, well, 6 to 8. And I think your all's comment is that as far as 8's concerned, that would be a tie vote.
Mhm.
And you didn't, and any ties fails the action. So you wanted an odd number. And the statute does make specific provisions that you have to come to an agreement on that. Whoever's a part of it has to come to an agreement as to who that seventh individual is.
All right, so I'm gonna ask a question. What, you have something on
No,
that? Okay, so Squire Tanner asked the question, is industrial development defined anywhere? Like in the document?
Industrial development.
I think that the thought is people are concerned, and Richard, I'm not putting words in your mouth, so if you wanna turn your microphone on, we're happy to listen. You know, I think people think that an industrial park is gonna be smokestacks and things like that. And I think that's exactly what this is not going to be, and this is not the intention of this project at all. So I think he's just wanting to make sure, he's asking if there's a definition.
Industrial development is, it actually, what this document does is it creates and establishes an industrial authority by statute, and then the statute defines what the industrial authorities can and cannot do. Period.
There's more documents to come after this one.
Yes. He has-
Well, appropriations, yes, and actually, if you sign this and all 4 parties sign this, then your next job is to, other than appropriations, is to appoint the 7 people to the board. And then you say, well, what does that authority do? What do they do? Can somebody direct me someplace? That must be the question. Can somebody direct me someplace to tell me what they do? And the answer is KRS 15450, Industrial Development Authority Act tells them what they can do.
And that's in the 4th whereas clause here.
And it really doesn't allow us to limit their actions in any way. So the only process we have is our planning and zoning code and our future land use maps to define exactly what is acceptable permitted usage of that land, right?
But I think if you look at I understand that we've got to have those fail safes. I want to speak about the intention. The intention is to have advanced manufacturing of a robotic nature that is highly skilled, highly technical jobs, which are in demand. That's the intention of this. That's what we're doing it for. That is the economic development of the future. It's not smokestacks. Now, Squire Tanner has another question. Is this only economic development is different than industrial development. Let me just say that economic development is inclusive of a lot of different types of projects. Some economic development projects are also tourism based as well as advanced manufacturing based. Case in point, Buffalo Trace Distillery, bringing 750,000 tourists in addition to making however many thousand gallons of spirits. So that's a mixed use, right? But what we are talking about is robotics, these jobs of the future, the jobs which are engineering based, industrial manufacturing. You have in your packet a letter from KSU speaking about their engineering college, their industrial engineering program, their advanced manufacturing 2-year and 4-year program, and that Dr. Acapo and his team feels confident that we can work together to attract an employer who will be environmentally sensitive, economically advantageous for this county, and provide the jobs for their graduates that they're looking for. We are the people that are looking for it. The second question from Squire Tanner is related to fire, police, etc. And is there additional funds for the host county based on the providing of those services? As you know, City of Frankfort provides EMS, Franklin County provides fire and police and other kinds of services. There is a 10% fee that goes to the host county before this, any funds at the end of the,
It's a priority.
it's a priority. It's off the top. 10% goes to the host county. So that is the funds that go to the host county before any potential revenues are divided between the partners. But I want to say this. You are planting trees under whose shade you will not be sitting. Some of you may, you're a lot younger than me, but this is a 20 to 30 year project. If you talk to your colleagues in Warren County and Northern Kentucky who have done these regional projects, the payout comes later. There's a cost associated with it. You're taking advantage of this opportunity while Kentucky has its greatest opportunity to attract these advanced manufacturers to capitalize on that. But this is not a windfall for the county. It's investing in the future. And if we don't invest now, then we're further down the line. But that's your decision. I'm just the person that you asked to shepherd this through, as you very astutely pointed out midway through.
I'm gonna talk, sorry, thank you.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Squire Tanner, if there's anything else, but that's.
You want to make comment?
Go ahead, Joe.
You can.
I'm gonna bring up sewers, because sewers has been a hot topic on this from the get-go. So originally, the city of Frankfort said for $6 million, they could run sewer. I met with Melanie at Sculpture Park, things like that. There was a lot of concerns that if sewers were run from, let's say, city to there, there's 2 ways to do it. You could run a straight pipe where nobody hooks onto, or you can make it where the whole damn thing gets developed. And I think everybody in this room doesn't want that to happen. I think we're very wise with that. Since then, the city of Anderson has said, well, we have
Lawrenceburg.
Thank you. That we have capability to get it, we're closer. So for $3 million, we could bring sewers there. So for me, that takes the whole concern off the table that we're gonna develop from the city to the Anderson County line, because nothing changes. They're bringing the sewage over. So for me, and that's something that they're looking to do on their own, from what I've heard. So that's not gonna be part of their buy-in either. Everyone, we had a meeting last week and everybody agreed, we're all putting $1 million in cash. And so that kind of, there's a lot of thoughts, I think, on where the sewers are coming, how they're coming and things like that. So I just want to throw that out to everybody, because I know that's been talked about quite a bit last,
It's
Yeah,
for Lawrenceburg to provide it.
Richard, do you have something?
No, sir. I'm gathering a lot of information. Thanks for answering my questions.
Okay, yeah, all good.
So Judge, one thing that I'd like to add too is, I've been doing this for a long time. I can tell you currently, we're working on about $80 billion worth of projects. I represent a little bit over a third of this community. None of those are looking at Franklin County currently. What I can tell you is that we're in a window of about 5 years. I think we're gonna see a huge opportunity for the United States the next 5 years. And it has nothing to do with politics. It has more to do with energy. And what's going to happen is opportunities are looking to come here, and if we're ready, we will benefit. If we're not, then they're going to other places. And I can tell you, right now, I have about 15 of these projects across the 89 counties I represent. A lot of communities are in the same situation you all are in. Go back to what Penny said. You're making decisions on what is going to come in the future from these types of parks. And know that as someone that recruits industrial opportunities, the projects of when we were growing up, and I say that loosely as one of the older people in the room, the projects that we saw growing up are not the same projects we're seeing. I can tell you, we're going to start seeing a lot of food projects that are coming through, a lot of ag-based projects that are coming through that are really state-of-the-art type facilities that are going to try to answer some of the problems that we're seeing in the world. Is this going to be something that's going to be transformational? I sure hope so. Because if it's not, we're going to have to figure out some other things. And I think right now, having a partner allows us to get more attention than if we were doing it on our own. And I get back to the fact that we got to strike while it's hot. And right now, there's a lot of opportunities circling Kentucky and the United States.
The $4 million allocation, which, Judge, sounds like this has been going on quite a long time. I wish this court had been brought in sooner to have some better understanding of this whole thing. But $4 million does not necessarily have to be allocated, or it's allocated, but it doesn't have to be distributed to an authority. Thinking of a way that the court can see the development option before it moves forward, before the funds are actually put in, and have some agreement amongst.
My
The body.
understanding, Penny, correct me if I'm wrong,
Okay.
it depends on when the PDI money
This
were
is
to
subjected to,
get approved, then our money would have to go in then, is that right?
That's the
So-
way we
That's
understand
the
it.
way we understand it.
That's the way we.
And then you're gonna
understand
have
it
some
now.
kind of a grant agreement, I assume, aren't you? Yeah, so you're gonna have to follow what the dictates of that agreement are.
And it may be a short window. It may be a year.
Mhm.
It may be just the year of 2025. That is all we have to sell before the money expires.
I think, Eric, to your point, it's critical who we put on this board. Go ahead, Mike.
So
we've seen it get away from us before.
Yeah, no,
remind me how the board is chosen. What does that look like?
Yeah, what's the board look like?
What's it look like? How are they?
We
how are
appoint
people
two.
chosen?
2, Anderson 2, City 1, and then the 7th is selected.
City, Frankfurt's one?
No, I said,
Yeah.
Lawrence,
City of
Lawrenceburg, I
Lawrenceburg,
said
City of
Lawrenceburg.
Frankfurt are one apiece. The two counties are two apiece, is what you said.
yeah.
That's. So
And-
that's 6, and then the whole board comes together.
To pick the
choose
7th.
The 7.
Yeah,
Okay, okay,
yeah.
Okay,
yeah, that sounds.
Yeah,
okay, I don't know why.
And.
That
and
just
let's
landed for me.
Be very clear, KRS states that the judge of each county and the mayor of each county have direct appointments in those.
That's correct.
There is no review by the political bodies.
That's statutory. That is correct.
Hi, buddy. We can talk about it as a group.
We've seen it get away from us before, right? I'm always
Right.
going back
No,
to
I
how
know,
we
yeah,
put
but
guardrails
again,
on
don't
these
say it
things.
against me. I wasn't part of that other person. So all I'm saying is,
And we're not all gonna
I'm
be here
fine
forever.
for all of
This
us to
thing
come
is
up with
indefinite.
names that we think would serve us best.
I don't know if I'm-
We need to make sure there's people on there that have the same vision as we do.
I'm really just generally more concerned that, again, we've seen it get away from us. This is Franklin County land. This is not either city. And we're gonna be tied in without any more say except for through the zoning process. And I'm trying to figure out how, if there is a way that we can have just a little bit more sway in what happens in our county
Yeah.
for our citizens that ultimately are gonna come to us. And I don't wanna have a situation again where I have to say, I can't do anything.
Right.
I put my hands up and say, I don't have any control over that organization.
There, and maybe this is just silly, I don't know, but is there a way to put more parameters around any project we would accept? Is there a way to do that?
The authority is the one statutorily that has the right to select that deal now.
And we can't say, before we can't say beforehand that these are things that we will not have, we do not want. Like, that's just right out of the gate. If
I
it's
don't know
gonna-
that I would say it that way, but the best example I can probably give you, as mentioned earlier, is Warren County. And I know Warren County extremely well. And what happens down there is a real partnership. That's not regional. Oh,
Right,
it's, you know, it's
city
it's
county.
city county. It started out as the county. And it involves WKU and it involves a whole lot of other entities and people working together, making decisions. Now, they have brought in some good industries. They're full, the biggest one being the Envision project.
Right.
But now they want to focus more on technology. So now they're working with the university to accomplish that sort of thing. So it is a partnership that you have to have faith in your partners. And that's the chamber, the South Central Kentucky Regional Development Authority, that's the county, that's the city, WKU, et cetera. You've seen it. And it was a 25-year project, because I know Mike Buchanan started that in 1997 or 1998 and invested $25 million, not 1 million, not $500,000, excuse me, in that project. Look where they are today.
Well, let's talk about
So
how.
this is a local agreement. This is just to secure those state side of the money. And then once we have it, it's available, people start attracting to us if they want it, and we all decide, or the board decides, this is what we want in our county, that's when that moves forward. This is just to secure the grant money to get everything rolling.
Right. I mean, the way.
That's the way I understand it.
And
I just wanna
that's
make
the way-
sure,
the
that's
other-
the way I understand it.
That is how we understand it. and
Let me,
it-
let me address that question directly. Okay, I apologize.
No, you
Okay,
go,
all
yeah.
right, here's what happens. You pass this resolution, then you will be a party to the industrial development or the interlocal agreement
Yes.
that forms the authority.
Yes.
Assuming the other three come in, now you've got an industrial authority. Penny then submits the application to KIFA, I'm assuming that, and then KIFA is gonna say, yep, we accept your application. You all have agreed to match 4, okay? Haven't appropriated yet, but you agreed to match the 4 million.
Right.
We'll match you.
Right.
Okay, then they're gonna tell you when they want that money put in or how that money goes in, that it will be directed. I'm sure they've already got that process figured out.
Right.
So that then you've got that $8 million, okay? What happens next, the minute that grant agreement comes, we'll come back to you and say, we're ready to appropriate the $1 million.
Okay.
If you said no at that stage of the game, which I think would be wrong, but if you said no, you have the absolute right to do that. Then at that stage of the game, it would all collapse.
That's my point. This is just to get our funds appropriated to
Right.
start
No,
a,
no, the funds get appropriated
well, a
later.
building block for what we want to see. come
Correct,
in.
correct.
Then we decide, yes, no,
And when you meet with those individual companies, when you're matching the project to the site,
yes,
that's where the negotiation is around how much you want them.
yes.
Because you can say there's no incentives for XYZ, or there is an incentive
Shut
for
it down.
ABC.
Cause we
So-
have to approve the incentives.
Not all of them.
Well, you have to match the state if they're willing, yeah. So
No,
that's,
well, the pilots and things the other way around. You got to do the pilot agreement. Then once you've done the pilot agreement, so you do have some control. You don't
You
have
have
some control. You got control over
You
that.
got
You say,
control.
no, I'm not willing to give you any incentives. And then they may say, well,
And
fine,
then
I'm not
have
gonna come to your
insurance.
community.
Right, that-
See you later.
Okay.
You don't give me.
That's up to you, but you do that each and every time.
Right.
you do it each time with
Each
each
and every time.
prospect.
Take a
Each prospect.
step back to what you said just a second ago. If at the point that we get a PDI allocation or grant and it has some terms subjected to it, at any instance, can this move forward without Franklin County's involvement? If we pulled out, could the other 3 entities move forward still?
They could, but they won't.
You said they couldn't a second ago, that was my understanding. So they could.
They could, but they won't.
But
No, they won't.
But we
It's either
control-
gonna be 4 of you or none of you.
And we got 5 of 10. What other questions do we have for Gil or anybody? while
Penny,
they're
you
on?
mentioned a mandate of having 1,500 jobs as a minimum allocation for moving forward with anything. At what point does that come through then? Because I would imagine that some of those parameters need to be defined now within this about what we expect of our participation.
They are
But
in the resolution that was passed and that sets out the intention for the project. But Gil will have to answer. I'm not sure that statutorily they can be in the interlocal agreement.
Well, I don't think that's the place for them. Economic development, you're gonna end up with one job, 1,500 jobs, 2,500 jobs, 500 jobs. It's how you recruit, how the authority recruits, how it goes out and gets them. When they targeted 1,500, I think that was for financial modeling purposes.
Right. And I will also throw out, what is the base salary? I'm working on a project right now in a community that they said they wanted 400 jobs. Well, the project that we're bringing is 150 jobs, but the average salary is 175,000. So, you know, it's those transformational type things that you gotta be looking for here. We're not looking for minimum wage type projects.
No, well, it doesn't make financial sense.
Right.
for
Yeah.
Right.
That's a good point. I had not thought through that. Yeah, that's. Yeah, you take, again, Warren County, Northern Kentucky is an excellent example of this as well, but you know, Warren County, I mean. They've got some they probably got some jobs down there. I'd say the Tyson project probably got some minimum wage jobs, but mostly are not.
A lot of
Envision
that-
does not.
No, and, but the Tyson plant, a lot of it's automated. So,
Yeah, well,
what's
that's
happened is the automation takes away a lot of those.
That's,
entry-level jobs.
that's a good point. I thought about that.
I was astounded by that when I just recently toured Topi. Topi was one of our first in the modern era. They'll be celebrating their 40th anniversary this year. It's exciting. It's very automated. All of the welding is automated. They're making the wheels there for many of the cars that all of us in this room drive. And not only is their welding automated, but every stage is automated. That's the robotic nature.
Right.
And-
That's why there's so much training that's needed, because it's all advanced manufacturing. It's all robotic.
So then the people working there are like the engineers that
Right.
program the
Well,
robots.
they may not
and
be
things like that.
4-year
Yeah,
licensed,
exactly.
but they are
Industrial.
engineering technologists, industrial engineers, and that's the program that KSU has started. And they're in their year 3 of that project now.
And I think one thing too is that Kentucky used to be, we got projects because we were the lowest cost place. That's
Right.
not true anymore. We're the best place, not the lowest cost. We are the best place for someone to be successful. And what that does is it provides career earnings for people in your communities. Not,
We've got the training, we've got the places doing the training, we get people out, I mean, that's a pretty awesome partnership to have that most places
And
don't.
There's
you know,
also EKU,
Right.
You
NKU,
can attract the best of the
UK.
best. once
There,
it's-
there are
Depending on what we build.
30+ post-secondary institutions within a 100-mile
Right,
radius of us.
and
So we are in the golden seat for, I did a paper,
Yes.
wrote it, and had all of these things that we're talking about
Yes,
4 years ago,
You did.
way ahead before anybody was talking about
Right.
them.
and I think,
So,
yeah, I think the thing is, we are a highly educated community. And we need to understand that's the type of jobs we're gonna recruit.
Let's speak to that, exactly that, because that's my biggest concern and what I hear in this community all the time. We don't want industrial, that's low paying jobs. They think factory type jobs, and we don't have those workers, right? So I'm adamant that I want KCDC to do a study as part of your study that's coming up
the economic
About-
development studies that we're
Yes,
talking about, okay.
about what our talent base is,
Yes.
where we're most likely to go with our population and their skill level,
Mhm.
their education level. We know it's higher end. And we also know that that same educated level of our population at least is probably going to be competing somewhat for state roles and Department of Transportation, engineering jobs and whatever else in this kind of realm. So where does that sweet spot lie for us to define this type of development? Right now, I can't say that our community can answer that. 3 years ago, we couldn't even answer, what kind of products we could bring to Main Street and
Right.
some of our existing facilities. So
It's
we got some work
And
to
it's
do.
pretty good that we're gonna be starting in January on this process to address exactly what Sherry just said and exactly what you just said, Squire Westman. We're gonna do that with the people in this room and the city commission in the next 6 months. That's what we're going to start in January. And so it's a good time to identify that and to study that and to have it while we're looking for these people. It feels like this is the moment. And
I think we're all trying to get to the same place, and I appreciate everything every one of y'all have said, because we're cautious. We want to make sure the right company comes in, it's good for the environment, it's good for our community, it's not bad in any way, you know, but for us in these seats right now, we've been elected, is like a leap of faith.
It is.
Like Penny
It
said, it's
definitely
20
is.
years and Bill's been working with Bowling Green for a long time, but you all have seen what the governor has done, and he lives in Franklin County, and he has high hopes that he can land who we want here. And if we don't want them, we gotta make sure the right people are on the board to say, no, we don't want a tire
They
factory. We're not
define what
taking
we
it.
want them, and we
Yeah,
haven't been
exactly.
having those conversations for the last 2 years at
Yeah.
all. I've been asking for some community planning, some forethought, and we've got to do
So-
that as a body.
Yeah,
So let me ask the biggest elephant in the room, in my opinion, is our current zoning. We have to look at our comprehensive plan as it stands today. We know what happened the other night and that there's some changes coming forward for the new comp plan. We'll see if those hold true or not, but as current, this property in Franklin County is not zoned for this type of development. We have to make an argument that there's been some of those 3 zone change issues, that this is concurrent with their comprehensive plan. I mean, we have to. We can't just take this step unilaterally because we all want to vote for it or don't want to vote for it. We have to look at our comprehensive plan and base it in that. This is ultimately land use. This is
Yeah.
ultimately, this is land use, even though this is about creating an entity. But now that I said the other night, it states specifically a name for site. I don't think we can take this step without looking and making some basis in our decision about the comprehensive plan and this meeting the comprehensive plan or not meeting it to move forward. At the moment, I can't move forward because the comprehensive plan doesn't say that, and I know the one that's developing, the residents are not supportive of it, so.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing, and I think everybody in this room agrees that comp plan should have been done a couple of years ago, you know, it's still lingering on, and so what's in front of us is a deadline that, you know, from the state, it's not, we're putting on ourselves, that if we don't at least take this to the next step, it's over.
Keeps us out of it.
And that's not to say that we continue thereafter, but I see your point, and I mean, that you're right.
That has
It's
to be part of the
frustrating.
step.
Like,
Yeah,
it's
but-
it's a frustration.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, well, Gil, I want to thank you for coming
Yeah, no
in.
problem.
We appreciate everything. If anybody has any further questions or anything, send them to Jenny. We could forward them on to Gil if that's okay with everybody. And we'll go.
One thing I will say, this is a great discussion. I appreciate being able to hear it. Sitting out here in the middle of the woods is unbelievable. Today's technology just blows my mind.
Hey, Richard, we have one more meeting after this. Don't click off yet, okay?
Can I ask,
I'm not gonna take off, but I don't know that I'll be able to get all of it or not.
is there an expectation that both of these, this new resolution and this interlocal agreement needs to be approved by this court by the end of November?
Say that one more time.
Thanksgiving, before Thanksgiving.
Oh,
Both-
yeah.
Both of
Yeah.
these documents.
Yes.
Well, no, if you approve the I don't know which one you got there in front of you. If you-
Resolution or the interlocal.
All right, the resolution, you
agreement.
approve the resolution, it does 2 things. It approves the interlocal agreement and it approves the formation of the industrial authority. That's the step you have to take in order to get your application or request into KIDFA. It does a 3rd thing. It says this is not an appropriation of funds. It has to be done by a separate resolution down the road. That's what it does. If you don't pass that resolution, then the whole process is over.
So you're telling me we have a little time to tweak this interlocal agreement then?
No, I doubt that you do.
What you're saying.
You
is
can
there's no
amend it
money in the
later.
game With this.
Say again,
I said, I think what you're saying is there's no money in the game.
until you
Until
appropriate.
December 4th.
Clear,
That's the game.
verifying everything.
It
I'm
states-
the judges went out of the room, but I'm so tired of getting things at the last minute and being asked to, when they've been in the works for 2 years and the judge has been in those meetings and, you know, those things don't come to this body. So we gotta
Well,
have this next week, but that's just
We didn't-
editorializing, sorry.
this didn't exist until,
Last night.
Yeah. Yeah.
no.
Well, yeah,
last
there were
week-
tweaks made last night. Yeah.
Let me be clear, that did not exist until last week.
Yeah.
Because of this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This?
Because This gentleman
guy.
right here, this gentleman right here, because it, you have to think of all these
Yeah.
things. I mean.
I hate having to be
God knows I
devil's
don't want
advocate, but
to
I have
make
to
a
be.
mistake. My God,
Well, none of us want to make
no,
a mistake like that. None of us.
nobody in this room wants to do that.
Absolutely not.
All right.
Thank you.
all.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kim.
Hey, thanks, everybody. Thank you all. Thanks, Brad.
Thank you, Sherry.
Thanks, Gil. Thanks, Jen.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you, thank you.
Like your cup.
That's it.
Thanks, Gil.
It's like a game.
Thank you, Rick. I'm sorry. See you.
Thanks, man.
I'll text you later about the other one.
Okay.
That'll be a lot more fun.
Yeah, I have a
So
meeting
she
today.
signed, it's a great, she'll love it.
One of the
Good.
businesses.
She really.
Good,
What?
let's,
I think
let's
she will
do it.
find.
She's got a best friend that's there back for here. She's
She will
really looking.
she will find the home.
We have a couple of minutes in here.
I think you went out.
I hope so.
How do we like?
I need to take a position.
We're smoking there.
You need to leave me alone. Don't make me beat you up in front of all these people. No, you just do this.
Hey, Richard?
I'm following.
Is Richard out of town?
Yeah.
Yes, he's-
He's out the woods.
Okay, well, I've got his,
He said, you didn't get one?
he got one.
All right,
Yeah, I
I'm
got
gonna
his,
take
he got one and I've got his money here.
You already got it?
I got
I've
one
got
too, and
Richard's
I
one.
have not sent it
Okay,
to
well, he
you.
said, give me his ticket and I'll just reimburse him.
Okay, well, I got his. Anybody wanna pick it for the
As
rock?
long as it's paid, cause that's 11 today, right? 11
Yes,
on
it's
one.
11
Yeah.
one.
Cause I'm going to pick my dad up, he's gonna
Yep,
go eat.
I'm just trying to be sure.
You get a
Anybody?
ticket?
Huh.
Did you get a ticket?
I-
Are you gonna be able to
I asked
go?
For one, but I have not, paid her yet.
Are you gonna be able to go?
Yeah.
There you go. Richard, thanks, Richard.
Thanks, Richard.
Okay, I'm just trying to be sure. You need one?
I got two.
You got some,
I
all
got
right,
two, but yeah, I bought
I'm
mine
just trying-
last week.
all right.
You're welcome.
I really, I'm took some sinus medicine that's on in my mouth, like.
Everybody in my house
gosh,
is dealing
oh,
with that right
man.
now.
Look up, my face all puffed up and, oh. Whatever that is.
I probably won't be able to make it the whole hour, next hour. I think I'm gonna have to go down the road, but I stay as long as I can.
Richard,
Yes, sir.
I just gave Kelly your chili ticket, so.
Oh, okay. Well, let's give them to whoever wants them. Obviously, I'm not gonna be there.
I think they're on the way in, Richard.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and bring him in. Is that all right, Jeff?
Yeah, let's move.
On the way, buddy.
I'll hang on as long as I can, but I'm gonna have to go down to move out here in probably half an hour or so.
Really don't love that we're getting a letter from the KSU president who
Oh,
seems
good.
Oh, good.
informed about this, when the rest of the community has no idea.
Where's everybody? Why don't y'all sit here?
Okay.
Sit in these two seats. That's okay.
Hey, I'll go, buddy. You all right?
Just give us a second. I think everyone needs to use the restroom real quick, and then we'll do introductions real quick.
Good.
Where's have you been?
All right,
Yeah? Everything good out Peaksville way?
it's doing okay.
Yeah. Good. Birthday.
Great birthday, yeah. Yeah, all my kids got together, tried to get there. so
Really?
Worked out well.
$1,000?
You know, Eric, I messed up because right before that, and I was sleeping on my feet, I should have said, let's all split it, if anybody gets it. We're at a Keiko conference and this lucky dog here gets the grand prize.
And,
Oh, did
and
you
one
have-
of the two prizes.
Two, well, three. Stacy
Yeah,
won,
three.
Stacy won at dinner and then,
Oh, did she
they
really?
gave a candle,
won
a
the-
candle away.
What candle?
Pick your menu up
Lord.
and it said winner and then.
I'm going straight to the casino.
I got a
mean, y'all
$50 Amazon and hit the 1,000 the last.
Isn't that of like 400 people?
2,000.
What?
Holy,
Wow.
there's 2,000 registered.
They-
Are you serious?
Did you see how the ticket came out? He was spinning the ticket.
It fell on
and
the
that
ground.
ticket flew out of the thing, hit the ground. He said, that's it. That's all.
It's meant to be.
Yeah.
Really? I
That's wild.
never had luck like
I would have gone straight across the street, that new gaming center. I'd at least played half of
that.
that.
Oh, geez.
So
You know, I'm here, Judge, because I can't zoom that one.
we are,
That's where we're at.
we are priority, trust me. That's why these guys are here. So we're doing everything I can.
Well, I was fixing to.
Well, I tried to give him a little hint when I said big spell. He's a new magistrate.
Okay.
So he was appointed, Scotty Tracy, who's been on for 10 years.
Yeah, I live right there on Smithy Hill off Fiscal Road.
Yeah. Anyways, governor appointed him.
Okay,
So he
I
had,
saw that.
so he had to leave,
Okay.
so, Mike got the appointment, and then he just ran on campaign, he had to go
Yes.
to a special election.
Okay.
So he won, so. And he'll get to do it
Just
again in
winning
a
all
few
kinds
years.
of stuff these days.
Yeah, exactly, yeah, yeah.
They're kind of settling down for you now?
Trying,
Lucky
yeah.
month.
Catch your breath?
It's a little easier not beating doors, walking and coming out and
I
talking to people, you know?
You should try your luck. The month isn't over. It's all been right here, right?
That's true, yeah. Yeah, who was waiting on Kelly? Yeah. Jerry, how's the weather down there?
88 degrees every day.
Oh, was it really?
Sunny, not humid,
Ah,
it's perfect.
you got back from Mexico,
Okay,
yeah.
Last night, like 10:00.
very nice.
Right back in Louisville, I guess?
No, we flew direct from Cincinnati,
Oh,
and I
okay.
had driver from Cincinnati.
Gotcha.
That might be the best looking cup I've seen all day.
It is, that's someone Gil commented on it. It's the best one, I can tell you right now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm pretty big. I came in and the first thing I did is started laundry and I was like, I gotta get in.
Oh,
I just hate dragging that stuff, opening my suitcase and there's like,
I just dump it all in the washer,
Yeah.
even if it's clean, even if I washed it right before I left, I just dump it in there again.
I'm not allowed in the laundry room, so.
You wanna get going?
My wife
Richard's
is here.
still on.
Yeah, let's go.
He said he's gonna be limited on time.
Yeah, all right, perfect, perfect. So why don't we just take a minute, go around the room. Eric, you started.
Eric Wisman, Magistrate Sixth District.
This is Kelly Dykes. She's third district, like folks of Elkhorn out Georgetown Road.
Mike Carey, fourth district.
I'm Sherry Sebastian, I'm the first district, so my district is on South Frankfurt, and then it runs 127 out to the Anderson County line.
My district will be mainly in Eric, so we're talking about service.
Our two are.
There are a lot of the areas there.
Yes.
And then Joyce, you wanna go ahead since you're sitting there?
Joyce Bender, constituent who really would like to have the internet and join the 21st century.
Yeah. And then back here,
Max Conley, County Attorney.
Tim Cox, County Clerk.
Michael Muller, county judge. Squire Tanner's on, he's listening.
Hello, I'm still here.
Tanner, and then you guys go ahead and introduce yourself.
My name's Dalton Workman. I'm with the Government Affairs Spectrum and my colleague Ben here.
Yeah, I'm Ben Uselis, Government Affairs with Spectrum as well, and focusing primarily on this broadband deployment.
So Judge, when you reached out, I actually live here in Frankfurt, so I'm very interested in this opportunity, but Ben's kind of our all things expert on grants and our project build out, so wanted to make sure he was in the room with us today when we kind of have a conversation about kind of what you guys are dealing with right now and possibly kind of, looking towards the future. Potential partnership there.
So I think it's been a big question as far as, things have been very confusing, at least for me and probably the court as far as, deadlines and when things and maps that are approved, because I remember, 6-8 months ago, the Bluegrass ad came in here and they asked every magistrate to kind of identify if they knew underserved areas or unserved areas and things like that. So I think individually, we all kind of inputted on what we knew to the best of our knowledge. But then it's our understanding that that map has yet to be sent to DC, or maybe it has, and it takes a certain amount of time before it's approved. So we just got, I guess, if you can just tell us what your thoughts are, what your interest is in Franklin County, and where you all are potentially in the process, and what we need to do or what we can anticipate. That's all fair.
All very good questions. I know there's a lot going around there. So this is kind of, all this broadband expansion has had a few waves now since the pandemic, because and I've been working on issues like this for 15 years. And for the first 10 or so, I would sit down in a meeting with a county judge like yourself, and we'd look at a map and I'd say, it costs a heck of a lot of money to get out here, and I don't know how we're going to do it. So what has happened in basically since COVID is there's been an emphasis basically from the federal government on down to say, we need to invest some funds here, put some taxpayer dollars towards it, and then combine that with private money from companies like ours to reach these areas where it's rural area, beautiful area. Lots of people like to live out there, but it's expensive to build fiber out there. And we looked at all these half measures. Do we do a fixed wireless or some sort of Band-Aid fix to it? And it was decided, look, let's put some money towards this and let's find ways to actually get fiber to these homes and get so that people who live out in areas like yourself, ma'am, have access to the same stuff that people here in downtown Frankfurt or Lexington or New York City have. So that's the good news, is that we have had lots of programs come through. The main one that we've been working through for the last couple of years has been the ARPA funding, which has funded the state program that they've run two rounds of. I think you all had a project with the plant board. I'm not sure where that stands, but that was funded through that ARPA program. We've had tons of programs or projects funded through that. The next big wave is BEAD, and that's the $1.1 billion that you've heard. The goal for that money, and talking with Megan Sanfus and the Office of Broadband, is to use that $1.1 billion to ensure every home has some sort of solution. Hopefully, most of them will be fiber. Some of them might be so far out they need something else, but for the most part, it's use that 1.1 billion and get everyone connected. The first step in doing that was the map. And so the process that this map has taken is earlier this spring, they did the challenge process. And that's what I think the maps that Bluegrass is probably showing you were kind of some preliminary views of that. And what the main crux of that process was, providers like us looked at that map and said, actually, these areas here, we've covered them already. These areas are not covered. And using all that data to try to piece together a final map of eligibility. That's what they're working on right now. My understanding, it has been sent off. I think it was sent off back in August or September, and to the NTIA, which is the federal agency that's going to ultimately approve the maps. I think the Office of Broadband is hoping those get approved by the end of this year-ish, and that they can start applications beginning of the year, maybe January timeline. The state's talked about even kind of releasing a preliminary map to help providers at least start thinking about where projects are. Because what we'll want to do is, when those maps come out, we're going to look at Franklin County and about 100 plus other counties in the state and see what's eligible. How many eligible locations are in the county? Is it 100? Is it 1,000? Is it more or less? And our teams will look at that. They'll design a project just like we have for all the other ARPA projects we have underway, and determine what the costs are, how much we're able to put forward as a company, and how much we would need in subsidy from the state, from that BEAD money.
Ben, can I
Yes,
ask you a question?
please do.
Is
So
that
you're
okay?
fine.
Oh, yeah,
This is
Um,
a Q&A. It's fine.
Okay, so I'm assuming your company has received notification that it is pre-qualified for Franklin County.
So there was a pre-qualification process back in September. We participated in that. Basically what that is all the information about your company that would be the same across any application, right? So that our financial qualifications, all that sort of stuff, we submitted that data. And then we also submitted a list of what counties we were at least interested in looking at. For our company, because we're the biggest provider in the state and we already have projects going on in almost 50 counties, I think we submitted all but like 3 counties. So Franklin's definitely on there in terms of a county that we will be looking at once that map is released to transfer.
Did you receive anything back when you submitted that to the state that said that your pre-qualification period, I guess, application had been accepted, at least for Franklin County?
Yeah.
We don't know a lot about the pre-qualification
Mhm.
process, but we have understood that there is such a thing, and that applicants such as yourself, providers, have to be authorized for a specific county. So I'm sure we're all wondering here to make sure that you've received something back that says, yes, we are
So what,
authorized to be a provider.
my understanding, and we had a conversation with the state, we meet with the state at least once a month to talk about all the issues we have going on. I think this was a couple weeks ago we met, and other than receiving a preliminary kind of confirmation that our application had been received, we have not received anything formal saying we are approved. I don't think any provider has to date. What the state said is that they will be sending those out. Essentially, I'm taking no news is good news right now. That, I mean, everything's going to be okay in terms of that pre-application process. And then in terms of being pre-approved or pre-qualified, it won't be county by county. It will be this entity Charter, Spectrum, Frankfurt Plant Board, AT&T, whoever it is approved to bid in the next round of funding. So when that round of funding opens in January, these providers are eligible to bid and go after projects through that round of funding.
So can you talk to us about like your rate structure? Like how that would roll out here? Is there something unique because of the BEAD process that would allow another tier for a rate structure to come in? Or are you relying on just a general rate structure that you currently have in place? Or,
And now, when you mean rate structure, do you mean
and I'm talking an end user. I don't
Yeah.
have broadband now. I live in Breezy Creek. So we don't have broadband
So
down there.
let's say 1 megabit of service is $30 to $35 a
Yeah, I'm
month.
just
Where do
trying
you
to-
fall into that category?
So, I'm trying to remember what
Just trying to-
I don't remember what our current rates are. I should probably look that up, but what I will tell you is everyone that we connect, whether we do a project through ARPA that's going on right now or upcoming through BEAD, will have access to the same levels of service, which right now, correct me if I'm wrong, Dalton, we have our main level of service is at 500 now. We just upped it, that's 500 meg service, and then we have a gig level service, gig symmetrical service. That's true if you have our service in downtown Lexington. That's true if you get connected through one of our projects we have ongoing, or if you end up getting it connected through BEAD. You'll have access to the same level of service, and you will have access to the same rate structure as anybody else.
And I have one more
Okay.
in regard to easements. Well, the same questions asked last time.
Next,
So,
yeah.
You can come, yeah. good.
so easements, how do you have the current easements that you would need to be a provider to every home in Franklin County that is either unserved or underserved? Do you have to get easements? If you have to get the easements, are you looking into the length of that process? Because I think ultimately we're trying to figure out how long it would take to roll this out to every home in Franklin County.
Sure.
Too, we're looking at rates for end users, which is critical to everybody at this table. And we're looking at how soon can I get it?
So again, for rates for end users, let me just put a bow on that one. Same level of service and pricing as anyone else. We also have low income offerings for folks.
You can email to me and I'll
Absolutely.
distribute.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll take care of that. We'll get that to you all.
So your all's rates are not the same nationwide, or are they regional?
We have the same nationwide. Now, we do occasionally have promotions in different areas that might, but the same baseline rate structure everywhere. And then in terms of easements, so we have a franchise with the county, because we do have a small footprint here today. That grants us access to the rights of way. If we expanded and got into additional cities and needed because Kentucky has local franchising, so we have to have a franchise in place with every city and county that we serve. We would have to get that additional city franchise, which we've done elsewhere. It's not usually a big lift.
I'm sorry, our question on that is we've got 4 or 5 providers throughout the two different areas that we're mainly looking at. So that was what a big concern for us is already having the easements in place,
Mhm.
For time constraint, issues.
Well, in terms of easement, so when we built, let's say we won a big project to serve rural Franklin County. And we have access, we have a franchise that allows us to be in the rights of way to do that work. And there will be, for any project like this and for any provider, there will be instances where you'll need a private easement to get through this property, to get to an area that you can't reach today. Well, we work with landowners, we work with homeowners to figure out how to resolve that. But the bulk of what we do is following in the public rights of way today, where basically wherever your electrical is running, right? We just follow electric. So if electric is up on poles, we work with the pole owners to attach to those poles and get to the end user. If it's underground, we go underground, lay conduit and run that same route. It's very rare that we set up a new route for just our services. So we're usually right along the path that everyone else is going to.
So does that mean you have to get an additional easement to do that? Or you
No
have
additional,
the ability to do, I'm just trying to make sure
yeah,
what impediments may be out there in regard to a swift rollout.
that is a very
As
good question.
expeditious as it can be, doing it the right way so that there's
Yeah.
not an interruption in service or, breaks in service because we rolled it out quickly and didn't do X, Y, and Z.
Sure. Easements per se aren't necessarily an issue, because like I said, we have access, but what we do have is pole permitting, which is a process whereby, let me back up. Since you're thinking about timelines here, let me talk just kind of high level about how a project like this works. It basically goes through 3 phases, right? The first phase is we go out, so we win an award, the state says, here's some additional funds, we put our funds forward, here's our project, we're now gonna build out into this area. The first stage is we go out and we walk the entire project route. We walk every road, we look at every single pole, measure the heights of everything, we look at every railroad, creek, ditch, highway, everything we might come across. And we put together a grand design of the project. That's phase 1. Phase 2 is we take that design and we send it to the pole owners, which is primarily the electrical companies who own the poles. We're not allowed to go right next to them and set another pole. You're supposed to work on the same pole. What that means is we pay a application fee to submit an application and do all the engineering for that pole. We pay for any work that has to be done, if their lines have to be moved, if a new pole has to be set. And then we pay to attach to that pole and pay a rental fee essentially for perpetuity to be on that pole. That phase 2 is a crucial point in any project because depending on how long that process takes, and we're getting better, we're working with pole owners to work through these large scale projects where we're turning around a lot of poles. But that phase 2 determines how quickly we can get into phase 3, which is actually the easy part. I have access to all these poles, I throw some fiber up there and I get to your home. Right, so that's kind of how these builds work, and that pole process is the big kind of question mark in terms of how quickly these projects will turn around. Like I said, when this started right after COVID, pre-COVID, we would send pole owners a couple hundred pole permit requests a year. Now we're sending them thousands a month. So they've had to ramp up just like we've had to ramp up, and so we're getting better at it, but it's a process.
So you've spoken about a small footprint here in Franklin County. Where is that small footprint? Is it out in the rural section of the county, the unincorporated area of the county, or is it in the incorporated area of the city?
It's not in the city, it's out in the county. We serve only a couple hundred homes. You know exactly where.
But the Anderson County line.
I think it is too. Yeah, it's a small portion where we serve today.
So let me piggyback on that question. So you all said you're the biggest provider in the state. I think I heard that correct. So let's just look at to Squire Sebastian's point. So we know where you are in Franklin County. Do you touch any of the other counties that border us? Like what certain?
All of them.
So
We're all around you.
you're in
Owen, Scott,
Woodford, Scott.
they could come in.
Yeah, Owen's the one where we probably have the smallest footprint today, but we're there too. But yeah,
Shelby.
Scott, Shelby, we have a huge project going on where we're gonna be hitting just about every household in Shelby County. Anderson County, we're gonna be hitting just about every household.
Is that
in
through the
Anderson.
bead? Talk about Shelby County.
Shelby and Anderson both were big, and Scott as well, that's another one. But those were ARPA funded, for the previous state grant rounds. I think, I mean, just to talk turkey here, I think the difference is because we don't have a foothold in Frankfurt, right? It's harder for us to it's not impossible, we can do it. But like in Shelby County, for example, we've served Shelbyville for years and Simpsonville and all these other, so we can branch from there out to the rural areas. So that's kind of what we're doing in Shelby and Anderson, Scott, all these counties that surround you all. Because we don't have that foothold here in Frankfurt, it hasn't been as easy to branch out from there. We'll have to kind of come from the outside in, which is totally doable. And especially now that we have these projects where, I mean, we're going to be building up to the county line in Shelby County, in Anderson County. Scott County is already done.
What about Henry?
Henry's another one, huge projects in Henry County.
All right, so let me ask you this. So you're still working on those through ARPA. So what has that timeline been? Because I think that's a big one with the court, are we looking at, and I know we're not looking for exact things, but I mean, are we looking, let's say, and ultimately, I think the state awards it, whoever wins, and when we're happy to work with anybody, but let's say, July 1, we state says, you know, Spectrum Comcast gets it, yada, yada. What are we looking at for the end users? Is it 2 years? Is it 4 years? Like what? I mean, if you're still working on ARPA stuff, that's been how many years now?
Well, so the ARPA stuff was somewhat delayed due to contracting. I think, again, early days of this process, everyone was figuring things out, right? It took us almost a year to get a contract signed for Shelby County project, for example. Generally speaking, though, we like a 2 to 3 year time frame. I mean, frankly, we'd like to get it done faster. Once we win a project, we want those customers as soon as we can. And so Shelby County, for example, it was awarded back in June of 22. It didn't get, the state didn't sign our contract for more than a year after that. So we're technically, you know, we're probably still from a contractual timeline on that 2-year-ish time frame, because we'll be activating most of that in 25. And again, like, we're able to do some stuff before that, when we got the award to when the contract was signed, we were able to do kind of all that phase 1 stuff, walk out the project, get our design ready. We just couldn't push go on permitting and contract and construction and things like that. But so, I mean, anyone who tells you they can do any of this work in less than 2 years is lying,
Right.
because it's just a big infrastructure investment. And, you know, generally speaking, again, if I had access to all the polls today, we could get this project done in 9 months. But that's the process.
So is it safe to say the counties around you, all the surrounding counties are completion date estimated 2026 by the end of 2026 right now is?
Definitely by the end of 2026, Henry, Shelby, Scott County is pretty much done. Anderson, Shelby, and Henry will be hopefully by end of next year, if not sooner. But all of those ARPA projects have to be done by end of 26 at the absolute latest.
Sure, we got.
Yes.
Oh, thank you, Jim. So if you were looking at doing a build out, would you go like a sector of the community first? And just trying to kind of figure out your approach to what the rollout looks like.
It's a very good question. So the, 2 answers to that. On the front end, when say the map comes out and there's 2,000 homes in Franklin County that need service, we will look at all 2,000 to see if
2,100.
2,100. Okay, there you go. I was pretty close. I just guessed. We will look at all 2,100 to see what route is. Now, maybe we can get to all of them. Maybe we can get to half. Maybe there's some. We'll design a project to get to as many as we can that makes sense for us to do. Hopefully, it's everything. Once we have the project, let's say it all works out, we find a project for 2,100 homes and we've won that award. Now we design that project. We design it in small boundary areas. Each area will be served by an OLT, which is like a node, right? The fiber goes to this OLT and then goes to all the homes. As we're building, we can light up one OLT at a time. So even if the whole project takes 3 years, we might light up some sooner than that. So it'll be kind of a rolling effect.
Well, that might go to you next.
So you get the fiber on the pole for the house. What's the cost from the pole to the home? Is it?
It's in court.
Included?
That's part of the project. When we design these
So all-
projects,
All routers, all everything.
they will pay to get hooked up the same way anyone else. So they might need a route or a modem at their home, something like that. There might be a one-time install fee for us to go get their home hooked up, but that's usually 40, 50 bucks, something like that. There will not be the $1,000 to get it down the
Okay,
driveway.
that was my question.
Yeah, that's all part of that.
Go ahead, Sherry.
So then you just made a statement that we're gonna roll out what makes sense for us to do. So does that mean all of the homes that are identified in the map? Whatever number that ultimately becomes, you may choose to only do a set amount of those if you are the provider that's selected, because I think the mood of the court, and I don't want to speak for anyone at the table, but
We're all thinking the
it,
same thing.
I have heard everyone here say that they don't want to leave one home behind in their area.
Yeah.
I don't. And I dare say that there's a soul here that doesn't want to leave a home behind. So I just want to make sure I understand that means we're going to give the ability for every home in this community to be served. or potentially that's not in the cards for a provider.
It-
And we all need to be aware of that.
Right. I don't, let me make one thing very clear. We're not talking about like just cherry picking the best areas.
Low
that
hanging,
make sense.
low hanging fruit is
Right,
what we're
right.
looking for. Yeah, we don't want that.
Well, so when I say we'll build everything, like I've had some counties where you look at everything and here's 1,000 homes. I can design a project that gets 975, and then there's 25 way over here that's separate. So, or there might be 2 homes that are 10 miles off of a road from anywhere. I can incorporate those in, but then your cost balloons and you're asking for a lot more money, and the whole project, I might not be as successful pursuing it, right? So these are all things we have to look at. We're with you. We want to get to everyone. And that's the state's goal with this too. There might be, you might not get it all in one cleanly designed project, right?
So
Now,
what would that mean?
that would mean, so we could go after, and again, this is all kind of hypothetical here, because I haven't seen the
Sure,
maps from Franklin County. And some of this too is,
We just need to get our arms
Yeah.
around what those things mean.
no, and
For
you're,
for the 10 homes that are
Yeah.
on Gregory Woods, I'll
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
use Gregory Woods. I've been out there and know how remote that is.
let me say, one, you'd be amazed what we're getting fiber to right now. That before we started all this, I would have thought there's no way anyone's putting fiber out there. So we're getting further than you think. And this is probably more me thinking about conversations I've had with the state, right? The state's looking at how are they gonna get this $1.1 billion out, and how are they gonna connect everybody? There are homes, I don't think Franklin County is gonna be in this boat. I think this is more some of the eastern Kentucky counties that we're looking at, where there are homes that are 10 miles off a road. And the state can give me all the money in the world to go build it. It doesn't make sense for me to build 10 miles of fiber. There might be a satellite solution. There might be something else to get that home. So this is kind of the process that we're working through with the state. We're working closely with them on it to figure out, again, we want to capture as many as possible. I just don't want to get your hopes up that I'm going to find a project that covers every single home, when some of them may blow up the project in another way. So it's kind of a balancing act. We want to get as many as we can. We want to keep the costs low so we have a better chance of winning at the state, but we also don't want to leave folks out. So the other thing the state's going to do, January, hopefully, will be round 1, basically, of the project. So everyone, providers like us, will submit all of our projects and say, here are the areas we want to build. After that's done, they're going to have round 2, and then they're going to have round 3, and then they're going to have, I mean, Megan at the state has basically said there are times that she's going to have to come to providers and say, hey, you're the closest one to this home out here. What can you do to get this home? This is kind of the approach they're going to have to take to get folks connected, because it's just not as easy as saying, here's a blanket to get everyone. You're going to have to kind of patch it together.
So there's
And
gonna
we're
be some
willing to do it.
negotiations between the state and the providers.
Sure.
Is there an opportunity, let's say someone else is closer to that home? Would there be would she then talk to another provider potentially and say, hey, can you go ahead and bring it to Mr. Jones's house? Because it doesn't make sense for them to come 30 miles. I mean, so you're saying there's a bunch of negotiations that might happen.
Let's say we build of the 2,100, let's say we build 2,000 that are close to where we are today, and we're able to, extend that and get all those. And there's another 100 that are on the other side of the county that we're not really close. I don't think this is all hypothetical, and I don't think this is really going to apply in Franklin County because we're all around you. Let's just say hypothetically, there's another 100 homes out here that aren't close to us. The state may reach out to the plant board, they may reach out to AT&T and say, hey, you're really close, can you come pick these guys up? And if they say no, then they'll come to us too and say, all right, I know these don't make as much sense for you, but what can we give you to support you to get over there and get them covered? Worst case scenario, and again, I think Franklin County doesn't have many areas like this, but worst case scenario, if there's an area where no fiber provider can find a path forward to get to that person, right? Even with all the subsidy in the world, we can't figure out how to get that person. That's when they'll start looking at, okay, well, can we help them get a satellite option? Can we help them find some other source of better internet?
Can I ask a question? You said, maybe the state will come in. So if someone's awarded that contract and like you said, it just doesn't make sense. that is a possibility to reach out to another entity and say, hey, you're here, can you do this? Okay.
Absolutely, yeah. And in fact, yeah, I think the way and this is, none of this is official, I haven't had this conversation with Megan, but the way I'm kind of envisioning this is they are hoping that these first round or two gets the bulk of everything that's out there covered. And then they've got these little pockets, and hopefully there's none in Franklin County, right? But there might be, and there might be some in other counties where they're like, okay, we got 3 homes down this road. Who can get them? You know, what do we need to get them here? We still have X $100 million left in our fund. Like, how do we work with you to get these last little bits? Because that's, as I've done these projects in several other counties, you know, there are always some areas that are just remote and I mean, I've had some where we worked with the county to get down this road and get this person hooked up and they don't even want it. We go all the way down there and it's like, well,
Right.
all right. So that's something we're balancing too.
Let me ask you another one. So let's say Mike lives way far out Peaks Mill. And he has a problem with the service or something, and he calls the number on the sheet. Where does that number go to? Where is the call center? And what does that response time look like and things like that? Like, because currently you don't have much of a presence in Franklin County. So if you were to be awarded this contract, would that change? I mean, do you all now have a place here or not?
We don't have a place in Franklin County today, right? But like, again, we're all around you. We have Lexington, we have Georgetown, we have Shelbyville, small offices, and I mean, we're all around. Richmond, we have a ton of stuff in
So
Richmond.
where would the call go? Who would take the call? No, I'm not holding you to this.
No, it's good. So number one, it would be treated like any other customer on our network. Number two, we have regional call centers based on the problem, right? So way back in the day, your call might have gone to our Louisville call center, and no matter whether it was billing or service or internet or TV or phone, you would have gone there. Now, if you have a question about your video service, that's going to go to a specialized regional call center. I don't know exactly where that one's located, but I can let you know. And then, you know, depending on your issue, because that's the other thing too. Once you're connected, they'll have access to our internet service, obviously, but also video, phone, mobile phone service, all that stuff that everybody else has access to.
Where's your closest repair or maintenance station? You, Lexington?
Probably Lexington. Yeah.
And that was my question. I mean, you know, you have a tree limb fall, tear the fiber down. Is it 4 days, 4 hours, 4
No.
months? You know, I mean, that's my, and not holding you to that, but I mean, you know, when you get service, we have just one house, not 500 houses.
Yeah.
You know, how soon do we think we can turn that around?
I should know our response times, but it's going to be closer to, if not under the 4-day line. I mean, it's not. We have enough, again, because you're situated with service stations all around you. You know, it's not going to be hard for us to get to you. And whatever our response time is for anyone else will be the same response time for anyone else we hook up to our network.
Let's talk some dollars. The B program 7525. Is Spectrum in the realm of adding additional funds or meeting a greater percentage than 25% to make themselves more competitive with the state program for the areas that you serve currently or like us that you surround already? Or is there going to be any instance of a need to make an ask to the local government?
So our goal is to be able to put forward the 25% or more of any project, right? And that's what we've done. So let me kind of explain how we've done it for the last couple state rounds, right? Because we've been the largest winner of all awards in both rounds at the state. We've won more than half of everything that the state's given out. Usually what happens, we design that project. We say, here are the 2,000 homes in Shelby County that we're going to cover. It makes sense for us to put this much money towards it, right? That might be the 25%. For the state programs, it had to be at least 50. There were some where we put 75% of the project forward, and we just needed a little extra help to get everything. So we have our own internal calculations for how we value a project. It has to do with How many, obviously, how many homes, how many miles we're gonna have to plant. I mean, there's a big calculation that I don't understand that they put together. But what I'll say is so far in the projects we've defined, we've hit that 25% mark easily, because again, for the state, we had to hit 50. Now there have been a couple, I think Anderson County was one of them, where it was such a big project that we needed more than 50%. And at the time, Anderson County had some ARPA funds, and they put some forward to help us out and get something that was more attainable. And then we won that project. So that's a possibility if the county does have funds.
So let me ask you something on that just before you move on, if you don't mind. So at what point timeline wise, let's say January 1, you all get the map. Like, what does that look like? Like, when would you come back to us and say, this is what we're proposing, Is there any negotiations between the county and you all before you turn your bid in, I guess is my question.
There can be, and again, so some of this is because I don't know when I'm gonna get that map and when I'm gonna have to turn them in a project. I assume if they open it up, they're gonna have it open for at least 30 to 60 days.
Yeah.
And I also am hopeful that before they open it in January, they give us some preliminary maps maybe later this year, so that as we finish up December and into January, our teams can already kind of be processing, even though it's not a finalized 100% approved map. We can see, okay, here's what it roughly looks like in Franklin County. And what I'll say is that if we're not clearing the 25% mark, we've got bigger problems than we need more money from you all. You see what I'm saying? Like, that means that you have little dots spread out all over the place and it gets tough. I don't foresee that as being a problem. Frankly, I don't anticipate having to go to counties and asking for a lot of money this time around.
Right.
What I will say is there is a like 7 points in the scoring. 7% of the scoring is local support, right? So you have to show 4 instances of local support. It can be a letter of support, it can be a resolution, it can be a contribution. So I think what we'll probably do is do more like kind of nominal. If you wanted to throw in $10,000 and say, we support this project, we would do something like that.
Right.
I don't see me coming to you and saying, look, we want to do this project, but we can't get to 25%. We need $1 million from you.
Right.
I don't think that's going to happen. I think if that's the case, worst case scenario, we'll either trim down the project to find something more manageable, or figure something out, or kick it to further rounds or something like that. Again, I think that's worst case scenario. I don't foresee that being a problem, but that's kind of how we'll evaluate it.
Okay.
What did you do with Henry County? How was Henry County for you? Cause I used to drive around out there a lot.
Yeah, we
We
found a really big, in fact, this was in the first round of funding, so it was so big, we had to split it into 2 projects. It was a similar situation where the county put up like $25,000 just to show their support and help us a little bit. It wasn't necessarily needed, but they were excited about it. We're excited too. It's another, I mean, it's kind of like Shelby County in that it's pretty comprehensive. I don't think we're getting 100% of everybody, but we're getting the far reaches.
Well, that was my next question, like what percentage of Henry County were you not able to get? Do you have any idea?
That is one of the questions I am very interested in seeing when this map comes out.
Okay.
Because in previous state grant rounds, we didn't even have a map to go off of. So we're just we're using some generalized data and our own internal data. And we're like, we think we can build out here and over there. So it was hard to say, like, here's an area we missed. We were trying to not miss anything, but the mapping was not great at the
It would
time.
be easy to miss something there. So if it's,
It's, I mean,
Probably comparable to what we're talking.
yeah, I think Henry County's probably harder,
Yeah.
but that's why I like that.
It's
For
all
me, that
hard.
would- yeah,
We
it
had a
is.
project so Scott County was our first county-wide project in the country for our.
Oh, wow.
And our goal was to hit every single household. We just earlier this year found another house that we missed, because it's just, you think you've got this one covered, and then you realize, oh, this person built a home way back here. I didn't know there was a house back
Well,
there.
it's
So
changing all the time.
it is,
So,
yeah. As we've been building out that project, we've had tons of homes pop up, and they're like, hey, we didn't get covered. And like, we didn't know you had a house.
Are you building out streets and roads, rural, particularly in areas that may not be developed currently? That's going to be a big problem in our areas that currently rural lands are roadways are there, but without any houses whatsoever. But I have them coming. They're within the next couple of years, they're coming.
So
Make sure they're served.
if,
Yeah.
if they're not here today, we aren't designing to them. But what I'll say is if we do a major project, so Henry County, for example, where we're building out into just about every rural road, there aren't gonna be, unless it's an area where there's nothing now, like if it's out a road where there's nothing there now, there would be no reason for us to put fiber out there now, other than maybe someday something pops up. Other than that, like if you have a big project like this, you've got fiber all over your county. So if something pops up, if it's, especially if it's a big development where there's lots of homes, we'll get it because we're gonna have fiber close enough that we can shoot off and get it. What we've seen in the past is that like, before we did any of these rural projects, we're only serving, the city of Georgetown. Something wants to pop up out closer to like Sadieville area, we don't have service all the way out there. So even though we want all those homes, we can't get all the way out there to get it. Now we've already got kind of that spider web of fiber out there. So that's kind of one of the most exciting things in my mind, is that now that you have all that fiber out there, the level of development you'll see is through the roof. So and I get your all's eagerness to get something going, and we're with you, and hopefully we can find something on the map soon.
My only thing was that we talked a little about it is, say you were awarded, you got the deal, how long do you think it would take to engineer and get rolling? I mean, time, and I'm not holding you to anything, I just, 6 months, a year.
So, again, once we get the award, within the next couple months, we're out there doing that phase one, right? We're walking it out, we're designing it into those boundaries, we're putting all that engineering detail together. That, depending on the size of the project, that's easily a 6 to 9 month process itself, just designing it all. But once we get an award, we try to go on that piece of it as fast as we can.
Thank you.
Talk about your connection to poles, and I've already been abreast that my district has something like 2,000 poles that need to be replaced to attach anything on, and we're at the mercy of the utility owners in most instances. In some of these counties, you already navigated that with. How is that? You said something that it's sort of ramped up and they're getting on top of it now, but I'm told that's maybe a 2-year time frame.
Oh, God,
just on their part, but
I mean, again, and this is not, we are, if I was talking to you 2 years ago, I would have had a very different tone, right? Because I'm not trying to blame any pole owners or anything, because we dumped a load of permits on them, and we continue to dump more every month on them, to the point where, I mean, we've negotiated, so Kentucky Utilities, for an example. There was a point a couple of years ago where, 2 years might have been a little high, but stuff was sitting for a long time. And again, it was just that the processes that they had in place before, they were turning around, 200, maybe 300 poles a month, which is pretty good, but not when I'm giving you 3,000 a month. And so we've negotiated a new deal with them. We work very closely with them. I feel a lot better about where we are there. The smaller co-ops in the area too. We have to have a call today with the co-op association to talk through, improving those processes that they've stepped up. Basically what we're doing with them now is, for all of our other projects, we're saying, this Shelby County project is due next November. We need our poles back by June, if we're going to have any chance of hitting that date. Hopefully sooner. The sooner you get it to us, we can go. And some of it too is just with so much. I mean, we already have projects in place to build to almost 100,000 unserved homes in Kentucky alone through these other projects. So some of it too is just, I've got all these poles in front of Shelby Energy. I got to tell them which ones I want them to do first, and make sure I've got good processes in place. Because sometimes what you see is, yes, it takes them time to do that work, but also sometimes just the logistical stuff of, we sent you this, they send it back and say, we need to check these 3 things, and then we do that, and then they send us an invoice and we got to pay it. And there's just this back and forth that we're trying to clear that part out, so that at least that part's smoother. But it's improved immensely. I think over the next year or two, it'll get even better. So my hope is that by the time we're into these BEAD projects, we have a better system in place, and we're moving pretty good. It's still a lot. I mean, 'cause they gotta go out there and replace those poles. They're bringing crews in, they're trying to decide where their crews go, so it's a process, but we're working through it.
I want to ask you about building in redundancy. I'm thinking, with the disaster prone across the US anymore, I'm always thinking about remote satellite location for emergency response and things, which naturally fall to be our two remote firehouses or our three remote firehouses. Have you built out and in the capacity of your projects already any underground? Or how are you building in redundancy to those? And if we wanted to design something like emergency response hubs as part of the system build out while it's happening, where ideally in the future, our firehouses are also going to be little resource centers with remote library learning and that kind of thing, but also emergency response. How can we, have you had any experience with that? Just
Yeah,
bit
yeah.
off the topic, but
No, you're getting a little out of my level of expertise, but I
Simplifying the
know,
road there.
I know that
Don't
no, it's a good question though. I know that generally speaking, our network is built on redundancy. Now what that means is that if a major line goes down, we have ways to route it around other ways. Now, obviously, if we're going down a rural road and that line goes down, until we get that figured, it's out. In terms of setting something up for like your emergency management or something like that, there are other things we can do, and this is another benefit of having a build out like this, where we could set you up with a dedicated fiber. So we have, in addition to our like residential or small business everyday, get on the website and sign up for service. We have an enterprise team that can come in and they'll run. So off of the network that has been built out, they'll run a dedicated line to that location. It's a little more expensive, but you get that dedicated level of service. If something goes out, you have a dedicated phone number that you call, quicker response times, all that sort of stuff for something that's more important like that. It's what we do for hospitals. It's what we do for, a lot of schools or other locations as well. So
would there be any need for equipment located on our property with an easement, nodule or something?
You mean throughout the county for the project or for?
Mainly our emergency response to the fire stations, but generally.
I don't think so. I think you would probably, and it's been a while since I've done anything with the enterprise team, but I think it would just probably be a specialized kind of modem and stuff like that, but it wouldn't be any kind of massive equipment or anything like that.
All good information. So the one thing you all will send us is maybe your rates and things like that. I think that's the only thing that I heard, that maybe if y'all could follow up just for informational purposes. So I think everybody understands that. Can we think of anything else?
Do you offer a low income subsidy?
Yeah.
We do.
He said they did definitely.
There already are.
They
I'll
said
send
they'll
you info on
Yeah.
that. Spectrum Internet Assist. We did participate, obviously, when we had the ACP, the Affordable Connectivity Program.
Mhm.
Obviously, the funding for that has dried up and they haven't renewed it,
Yeah.
but we were one of the largest, providers in that. But then we have our own level of service for low income.
Good deal.
Thank
If
you.
can I ask one question?
Go ahead.
So one thing I'm starting to do now is preliminarily send out some information to counties to start, gathering those letters of support or anything
Yeah.
like that. It's not exclusive, right? So you can send a letter to us, you can send a letter to the plant
Yeah.
board, AT&T. So I may send that
Yeah.
along as well.
If you
and
send
then
that, yeah.
Be great.
That'd be good.
We will get you ready to roll.
Yeah. We appreciate you all coming in.
No, thank you so much for having
You
us.
guys.
Do you fellows have a card?
I do, yes.
We're gonna share those. Thank you.
Thanks. You deal them out here.
Thank you.
You probably have my phone number. I do.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you so very much. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate y'all coming in.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Yeah. Okay. Good to see you. Yep.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it. Thanks so much.
See you, buddy.
All right, take care.
Thank you all.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I think it was interesting. I mean, they're all saying about the same stuff. What really stuck to me was like, very, very good chance we're not.
That's
really
We have to ask for money.
That's why I asked where we were at, so.
Yeah, thought it was interesting,
Yeah.
so.
Do we know if there are other potential providers? Are these the ones that at this point, I know, when I've asked, you've said Megan won't tell us,
Yes.
or the state.
Yeah, yeah, everyone
It's
says.
not a
they-
person,
No,
it's an
no, yeah,
office.
exactly, absolutely,
An office maybe
Correct.
can't
that's what
provide the
they're saying at
information,
this
so
point,
we're
so.
not clear what the universe of potential providers are for Franklin County.
These are the ones that I took a staff, reached out to, and they answered my call. I don't know
Who's the
who
other
another
several are.
provider is, I really don't, you
You
know.
would presume that they would reach out to us,
By then,
as been indicated for the letter of support, since
Yeah.
it is a weighted application and there is a weight to having a letter of support.
Correct.
So far, we've got AT&T, local
Spectrum.
provider, and Spectrum, and that's, okay.
It's the only
I
ones
mean,
can
those are the
think
main
of.
one- those
Yeah, I
are-
mean, I don't know
yeah, they're the
who
main
else,
ones
and
that
if you all know of
serve
another
us.
provider that I should reach out to, but no one else has
I
reached
mean,
out
it
to
would
this
be
office.
like Starlink or somebody that's
Yeah.
out, in the
Yeah.
extremely remote.
Yeah. So,
The satellite provider.
yeah,
The only
so,
one that I've heard other people that are in remote areas talk about using.
now, I believe his name's Dalton, and I don't know how Square West and him know each other. He did say he came to me like a year ago and had a conversation. It was so long ago, you know what I mean, so, but it was probably pretty brief, I mean, it wasn't anything I missed before, I think BD came out. So, that's all I know at this point, so I think sounds like we do some support letters and we just kind of wait and see what happens, and it sounds like they'll circle back to us. Unless y'all think of anything
we
else.
just gonna do like a blanket sport letter,
Yeah.
Talked about that before.
Yeah.
I think it's the main thing, as was expressed today. No one wants to leave anyone behind.
Yep.
To not give them the opportunity for access. It becomes a matter of choice at that
Yeah.
point, whether you want to work with a provider to get the access or not. And as I heard this potential provider say, they can't cover the area, perhaps there's someone else. Maybe the others indicated that in kind of a roundabout way.
Yeah,
I never heard.
So,
and so I don't know if that's part of negotiations when they fill an application out, because, if they came to us and
no,
said,
we need to.
there's 100 left, that would cost you all $1 million.
Yeah, we need to know that.
And then at that point, you know what I mean, I think we'd all probably be on the same page, or is it a call from the broadband office that says, hey, this came in, I think this is good for 98% of it, we're gonna go for this other 2%. I don't know what the community.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
That seems to be
So-
what AT&T even said, that's gonna be the call of the state.
Yeah, that's what I mean,
That's-
I think some of that comes down to
Yeah.
state.
And Eric, while you were out of the room, that's one of the things that we started to talk about, is can we make that call to the state to firm that up?
Just to say, this is our intention.
Yeah, because we would like to know that if the provider that the state chooses, because it's not our choice.
Correct.
And they come back with their plan and say, your example, 98% is covered, 2% is not.
Yeah.
What happens, because the state made the selection, we did not.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so what is the state, how
What's the
will they
program?
carry, who will carry the ball across the goal line to make sure that that other 2%,
Yeah.
whatever that number is,
Yeah.
has the ability to be served?
Yeah.
That's the,
We're all on the same page. That's all I
Well,
heard.
what I heard him say, at least it sounded like to me, what I heard him say is that the state has a plan for that. They're gonna get as many as they can. And then they're gonna be smaller projects from there to make sure that everybody gets covered in some way or another. And what I heard him also say is that, there may be a few properties that this is not gonna work for, it's too far out, it's too remote, you're just not gonna be able to do it, but they could come in and do some kind of satellite thing, so.
Well, he's-
I think that's gonna be the case no matter who we end up with, I think.
He's the first one that said it expressly. We've asked everyone, if the state comes back and says, we want you to cover this road, this side of the river, and
Yeah.
you cover that side of the river,
Yeah.
plant board, you
Mhm.
cover that they are thinking about that, and
Yeah.
they're going to negotiate.
There's a
that.
plan there, yeah, that's,
Yeah.
that's,
It's the first time that they've said it,
But the state hasn't done a good job communicating that with us.
right.
anything.
We don't know anything, so, that was a good meeting.
I know Dalton really well, so I was wanting to ask him, the maps that are gonna come out, the plant board's 883 homes that they say they're working on serving, but they don't have easements in place yet. And they're working forward, those should still be unserved on those maps and could potentially be part of the service area of this project.
It could be.
Yeah, if they're not served.
And that's kind of what I've been trying to get to the heart of, that the state theoretically could award those, that low hanging fruit we keep talking about,
Yeah.
to someone else. Even though the plant board is working that way, or we could have an instance where we could have the redundancy of two offerings, which,
Good and good, yeah.
so I haven't been able to get a clear. But he just asked me that expressly, like, where's that part of it?
But if
And
you think
all should
about it,
make sure
everyone
that's-
has said that. I mean, there's no regulations like you can go here, you can go,
Right.
here, you can't. I mean, it's really, the whole county's up for anybody if they want to run it there, and then it's up to, you know, if they are $5 cheaper a month, that's up to the consumer.
And the most choose it, yeah.
But as they said, I mean, AT&T, to my knowledge, doesn't own their own individual poles unless they are those remote, you know, along the roadside, short poles that just provide phone service.
Yeah.
So we're all in the same boat on connectivity and any easements that are gonna be needed, because they're gonna be able to use right of ways for the most part, but not for all of it.
Yeah, no.
So
I think
they're
we're
all sort of
in
in the same boat. Maybe the plant board's a little bit ahead on that one right now, but just because they've already done their own independent mapping,
Yeah,
and no one else has those to
yeah.
look at yet.
Well, I know AT&T, and I looked back at my notes here when you brought that up. They indicated that they have easements.
On every pole.
On every,
That's why I
They
asked the
did,
question.
for the
to him.
aerial poles.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean,
right, right. Where we at?
I'm assuming all that goes
Within the
in
right
on the
of way.
application too, you know, because I mean, I would hope the state would want these things moving along as fast as they can.
Have we seen how it's scored? Like, we haven't seen it.
I just hear we have.
Yeah.
2 points or something. not
Right.
much. All right. All good?
Good.
All right.
Hey,
Yeah,
I was listening along to everything and I know there was a question of when that map comes out, the unserved, underserved areas and the part the plant board's already got. I think it's incumbent upon the plant board because in that wording, the state says that working with local providers to help them with that map. So if the plant board has already gotten funding for that, they'll have to submit that, whether it's completed or not. So I don't think that's going to be the issue that we may have thought it would have been before.
yeah, because in theory, you don't, the state doesn't want to pay for the same areas twice.
Right.
You know,
And,
so,
yeah, and they can't get paid for it and not do it and somebody else get paid for it as well.
yeah, it's a good point.
but if it's a part of a larger segment, I don't think it's gonna be a absolute hurdle.
Yeah. Well, a lot to figure out. All righty, we good?
We need to, what about the plant board? They want a letter, right? Do we want to do well, we talked about that last time. You're gonna check on something for us. I can't remember what it was.
Max, are you comfortable with just doing a generic letter for them?
You were gonna check on the terminology of the award that you all, the last court did. Was that to the plant board directly or to the project?
Can you pull that in?
Yes, I did, it's to the plant board.
Which we can change that, you know, need be, it's still.
Should we do a resolution of a commitment of those funds to a project generally and be able to provide provide a letter that we have committed some funds? And would that appease the plant board to move forward? Because I don't want them to drop the project because they think, you know, we're not supportive.
No, I mean, I think we are all supportive of the plant board. It's just we have to be fiscally responsible for communities, you know, so. I thought last we had talked about not putting a
Not
financial
putting
dollar
it
in there, just saying. we
That is
support
Just a
the
blanket, that's
project.
why I asked about the blanket letter
Yeah.
on go.
Because the
Just
plant
no-
board will want to send that potentially. Our meeting's tomorrow, right? Yeah.
They had said when they were in, they needed the letter
On the
before the
19th.
nineteenth.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So just the letter, like we're gonna do everybody else and not put a dollar amount in
Right,
there, not
correct.
put in.
We're interested in.
Franklin County,
But,
looking forward to working with you if you're
Yeah.
awarded this project by the state,
Yeah.
et cetera. Very, just, and we are, I mean, I don't think anybody is not in agreement that whoever has the best plan for Franklin County and the state sees fit.
Yeah.
And we hopefully reach everybody, that's what we wanna do.
I'm thinking I want to communicate more to them that we have some financial obligations that we intend to make if needed. But we're not ready to obligate to them directly.
Yeah.
And how can we appease them because that deadline's tomorrow?
Yeah.
That they ask us for.
I don't know if we have anything. I mean, they know we got it.
I mean, they
I know we have the
Yeah,
million
they
that we
know.
already.
But, with
But
the
I-
other two companies
told
are
them
saying we probably don't need anything, but, that's my.
They will, whoever gets selected is gonna come ask us for something, they're going. to.
They'll ask you for something, I
It's,
mean.
it's us or nobody, we're selected, we need you to commit this much.
Yeah.
It's
But
gonna be
even like Gary said, he said, you could roll the die and say, if you don't like any of it, just back out, and then, whoever doesn't use the funds, it would potentially, they start upping it even more as far as what they pay to get your area done, but I'm not willing to take that risk
Yeah,
personally.
no.
I mean, I think but again, I think Sherry said this earlier, I mean, it's up to the state.
It is.
I mean,
It's
we
their
can
final
sit here and
decision,
say
that's right.
this, that, and the other, but 2 points out of 100, that's go a long ways.
Yeah, till they sign.
I mean,
Well,
they're bidding.
I will just say again, that we know if the planning board is awarded this project by the state, that money stays within Franklin County and turns over here. It's spent by families here in Franklin County. Now, I don't have a say at the state,
Right.
but we all realize
But-
that they are here.
But
And
I
you know
will
that-
say.
But again, it's
No,
not
no,
our choice.
I agree, but I will say they're subbing a lot of it out. There was trucks near my house from Indiana. So, I think a lot of the people, there's different phases. I think they'd even said it, we use
They have to
somebody
build
else to
out.
run all the
Oh, yeah.
lines. And then we do this. So I mean, there's, I think that's gonna happen with any company.
But in the long run, it's gonna mean additional employees, poll guys, maintenance techs, IT, the whole thing, billing specialists. Here directly, we're gonna see the direct investments of that expansion in this county. And more than we're gonna get in anywhere else. I mean, the dollars spent at Spectrum are gonna go out of this community and never come back. The reliability is going to be hopefully better with the plant board. The response rate is going to be probably same day. How much
Randy?
internet go out and have to wait 4 or 5 days for.
I don't think any of us are wanting to go away from the plant. I really don't, and for that reason, but, at the end of the day.
But right now, they're at $5 million.
Yeah, 5
Yeah.
million to nothing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's
And
all
that's
that-
the-
And that's.
Right now it
that's
is, but
preliminary.
I'm saying,
Yeah.
how do we, I really wish we had some sort of local economist, some numbers for us, like a $5 million investment in the plant board would beget, with 2,000 expanded addresses at their billing rate would beget what for us in
Yeah.
a 20-year return?
At this point, it's the state's decision to make, so I think we send them all a letter.
I don't
and-
know that completely, well, where my mind is going is I don't know that it completely is the state's decision. It's gonna be based on the application that's put forward and how those providers look. So if we don't commit anything to the plant board and they don't apply, then they're out of the game entirely. If they apply, but say we need a higher percentage because, we're a small utility and we can't meet the 38% that AT&T is gonna put in, and the fiscal court won't provide us the $2 million that we really need to make us competitive with AT&T, how do we?
But that's
I wish it were
conversation to be
two.
had. I mean, I
Right,
think that's, and we're guessing. till
And that's
this
the next
point.
6
I think,
months.
come February, March, in theory, they all come back and say, this is what we're proposing.
Yeah.
Can we have 1 million or can we have 5 million? I mean,
Yeah.
we're just guessing to this point.
But
I
at
mean,
this
we just gotta
point-
sit tight
We're not
and.
saying
At this
we're
point, we
giving.
can't put a number down for that reason.
No.
I can't.
I'm just thinking, how do we respond to the plant board that keeps them on the hook right now because they gave us a deadline? They
We
wanna,
get them a letter.
I don't like. to
We
do
give them a
that.
letter of support like we do. I mean,
I'll plan to call all the board personally just because anyway, but
All righty, well, we good?
Good.
Motion to adjourn.
So.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. We are adjourned. Thank you. That was a great morning. Hell of a Monday morning.
Right.